13 and 16. All right. Where is it? All right. So Revelation 13 and 16. Boom. All right, right here. It says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their hand or in their foreheads. All right. To receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now, bear that in mind for this next verse that I'm about to show you guys. All right. So Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. He says, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Verse 8 is key. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thy eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. All right. So, thinking of this verse, right? And thinking about the verse we just read in Revelation 14 and 9, he causes all great and small to take a mark on their hand or on their forehead, right? Like we know that the mark of the beast is a sign of allegiance, right? We cross-reference that to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 through 9, because we have to remember Satan wants to be God. He's a copycat, right? Everything the Father does, he wants to do. The reason why the Father gave Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9 as an instruction to his people, thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be as frontlets between their eyes, is because not only was it a sign for themselves to recognize, like a mark for themselves to recognize each other and who they themselves were, and as a sign between them and the Father that they were his, right? It also helped those who are outside the kingdom recognize him, right? Because if you bind them for a sign on your hand, that starts getting to that principle of like reminding you that what your hands are made for. Like you're supposed to do the work of the Father, the work of the kingdom. A frontlet between your eyes, like that deals with the forehead. The frontlet, like between your eyes, it's talking about the forehead, right? So it's like it should be in the forefront of your mind. So like you should have the mind of the Father. You should have the works of the Father, right? And what are those? It's these words which I command you this day shall be in thine heart, right? That shall be as a sign on your hand and frontlets between your eyes. So when the scripture says that the Antichrist will cause them to take a mark, right, in their forehead and in their hand, while that physical component is got to be there because it's prophesied, we can't forget that spiritual aspect is there, right? That spiritual sign on their hand, that spiritual mark as a frontlet between their eyes before the kingdom of darkness. That's what the scripture started talking about. Like you see when the Father had flooded the earth, he said all the ways of man are wicked. All they do is work evil. Everything in their heart is evil. And look at the world today. So many people. The scriptures already say in John 3, after verse 16, it says anyone who rejected the light of Christ, like they're already condemned, right? But before we get on a believer or the modern Christian church, I want you guys to think about the non-believer. What does a non-believer do? The non-believer does these verses right here on the screen, but for the kingdom of darkness, right? They have the commandments of Satan. Like they have the book of the law of Satan. And we read a small excerpt of it, like on here, when you think of like the words of these demons, right? Like this universalism, these which that gets in the zodiacs and all of that. You know what I'm saying? So it says it should be in your heart. That's what's in their heart. You shall teach them unto your children. They teach it to their children. You shall talk with them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way and when you lie down and when you rise up. All day, every day, whatever they do, they're talking about this stuff that is the law of Satan and not the law of the Most High. They bind them for a sign on their hand. They do the work of what this law talks about, which is a lawless society, which is the opposite of the law of God. Their mind is the opposite of Christ.